chosen.
Alright, truth seekers. We have Patrick Byrne, who appears on Ann Vandersteel Steel Truth Show. Numerous bombshells are dropped during this interview. One of the bombshells I'd like to highlight is how White House counsel Pat Cipollone and White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows appear to allegedly openly conspire to prevent attorney Sidney Powell from executing her role as Trump's special counsel in a case of true insubordination. I'll roll for you this bombshell segment.
Friday night, a curtain, a lead, President Trump has been buried in lead. I was in the room when President Trump, so at one point Pat Cipollone, in one of his hissy fits, yelled at the president, stood up and was yelling at the president. I almost decked this guy. He's a rude little son of a bitch. And Flynn stood up. I mean, Flynn is a real gentleman, as gentlemanly as it gets. And he even took to his feet at one point at three lawyers who were screaming. And I went and ended up standing shoulder to shoulder with Flynn and facing off with these guys. There was almost a fist fight. President Trump said later, there's probably not been a meeting like this in 200 years in the Oval Office. I can tell you that I saw President Trump, Cipollone, the general counsel, said something like, if you don't even need me, you can just do this verbally. If you really want to appoint Sidney Powell special counsel, you can just say it. And after 15 more minutes of arguing, President Trump said, you know what? Cipollone said, you don't even need a pencil and paper if you want to do this. But if you do that, this and that. And 20 minutes later, Trump said, you know what? I've made my decision. Sidney Powell, you were appointed White House Special Counsel. And somebody objected, well, she doesn't need it. She needs a clearance, and that's going to take X money, this and that. And President Trump said, you know what? I have the ability to give a clearance with my word. I hereby give you a TS-SCI clearance. This is done. Wow. This decision is done. We're going. The next day, Sidney Powell, this was in front of Mark Meadows, was on the phone. This was in front of the legal staff, and it was in front of myself, Flynn, Sidney, and General Flynn, Sidney, and the other lawyer, whose name, for her own security, I don't want to use. And the next day, Sidney Powell called Mark Meadows and said, well, now that I'm White House Special Counsel, I'm going to need an office at the White House. And Mark Meadows said, Sidney, I don't know if we can really do that. And Sidney said, well, okay, I at least need a pass so I can come and go. And Meadows said, well, actually, I don't think we can really do that either. So they are directly are refusing to execute an order from the president. Yesterday, or today, today's Tuesday. On Monday, Sidney Powell went to go over to the White House and was refused. Actually, I was with her Sunday night, and she was refused admittance. I mean, we got into the White House, but they refused. They will not inform him, even though he has directly said, I heard him say that they do not have to worry about access. Sidney and Michael do not have to worry about access. They have direct access. His people are refusing to execute his orders. That's how crazy it's gotten. They are refusing to execute his orders. And today, the same thing going on. And since then, everyone we know has had a lead wall come down around him. His own staff, Mark Meadows, and Pat Cipollone have taken control of the Oval Office, and they are refusing to follow President Trump's orders. It's the craziest thing I've ever fired this little weasel on the spot for the way he talked. If he had ever talked to, it was all I could do not to slap the guy. He was so rude to the president.
So, from the fact that Mark Meadows and Pat Cipollone are both still working in the White House, the first conclusion we can come to is President Trump may be a bit too nice. Very late in this presidential election ballgame, we do not have any time or room for insubordination. This particular type of insubordination appears as sabotage. The 4D, 5D chess analogy can only go so far. At some point, President Trump has to realize he's being intentionally isolated in order to encourage him to concede. He'll need to participate in appropriate executive action, otherwise he will be sealing his own undoing. Many great clips from this 2-hour interview. I'll put a link to the Periscope version of the interview in the description. Fight on, Patriots. The war is almost won.